Hi, this is Jason Schattner, aka Wolffoetowtech, and this is my video about uh, the mini interview Nintendo's president Tatsumi Kimishima had with, I can't remember the name of the company or the publication. I didn't even bother to write it down. It's just not that big. But this is what this is my little short video or really long video about that. And as you see, I have some of the cartoons in the movie up here. Just I'm gonna pull it down and talk about it more later in the video. But the news basically points out that the Nintendo's president is saying that Nintendo is going to focus on new ideas and not old ideas. Nintendo wants to surprise people about the Nintendo X and the Nintendo NX, and they will talk more about it this year. And Nintendo is also planning on moving into TV shows or anime and movies and theme parks. We know about the Universal theme park situation, and they're also planning on increasing profits. And this is an incredibly short interview. I almost questioned the point behind doing it, but I mean, Tatsumi Kimishima talking to the newspaper and only like explaining like 4 or 5 different things, but that gets into Nintendo's strategy and reasoning, and there's a lot of issues within that. And Nintendo is an amazing company. They can really market an idea, but they have to decide they want to bother marketing it. And if they decide they are not particularly driven to do so, they simply won't do anything at all, really. They only seem to have a capacity to market or advertise for only like 1 or 2 games each system or platform at a time. And this is actually quite sad because this really doesn't do them any good to not really try. And of course, there was also a recent report that stated that Nintendo was actually the third or fourth largest advertiser last year in dollars spent in the video gaming industry. And I don't have those exact numbers. I saw it in an article or something, and that was really interesting. And then I immediately asked myself, where are they spending all that money on advertising? I hardly even see it. And I'm a person who really enjoys Nintendo, and I usually hang out wherever I can where Nintendo is, and you don't see too much of it. Although I don't watch as many cartoons as I used to. And just for your knowledge, if you were to find Bugs Bunny or any Looney Tunes cartoons or anything like that, Western cartoons in Japan, they will be referred to as anime. Anime is basically the term for cartoon in Japan. Anime basically is shortened for animation. So this is anime in Japan. Let's make that very clear. And I'm going to go into talking about the cartoons more now. And this is extremely important because I was going to do a rant video about this, and there's so much in this little detail. Nintendo basically said, let's go back to do let's do new ideas, but yet the cartoon anime thing is actually a really old idea. The reason why these came about, the original Super Mario Brothers cartoon, a Super Mario Brothers Super Show, came about was when Nintendo was coming to the United States. They actually commissioned several cartoon series. I'm not joking. There was Captain N the Game Master, there was Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, and Nintendo put forth a bunch of cartoons on TV. And there was even Capcom with Mega Man as well. and that was Nintendo's part of Nintendo's entry strategy was to market to kids with cartoons and get people interested that way. And I'm gonna get probably one person who, at some point in the future, gonna leave a angry comment in the below. I'm gonna have to really point out this detail about. It's bound to happen. Nintendo predominantly markets to kids. And how do you market to kids? You make cartoons. You make card games. You make toys. You do stuff like that. And Nintendo is predominantly for kids and family fun time. And yes, I don't know why Nintendo stopped trying to do cartoons. Nintendo should have never abandoned cartoons or anime. Periodically, they will get back to it, but they should have never. They should have continued with cartoons. They should have came up with. There should be a Super Mario Brothers series of cartoons, and there should also be a Legend of Zelda cartoon series, and there's already a Pokemon. And that's the funny thing is, Nintendo makes contracts out cartoons or anime to be made, and with perhaps the exception of the F-Zero GX cartoon series, Nintendo has always revived and improved its popularity with the cartoons. Uh, Nintendo is Nintendo markets video games that are most appropriate, not always most appealing, but most appropriate to little kids. Yeah, it's the old joke about the 8-year-olds playing Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Yeah, yeah. uh, that's a Freudian slip right there. Yeah, and I fucking hate Freud. He's a hack. But yeah, Sigmund Freud is a hack. For all intensive purposes, everything he's ever written, other than the basic process of psychoanalyzation, has been largely disproven as complete bullshit. But one of these days, I'm gonna get into my other Wolffoetowtech channel, and start doing more stuff like that. But yeah. But Nintendo markets to kids. That is what's called an entry. That's called an entry level. I have to reconstruct my whole thought process here. Nintendo is PewDiePie. PewDiePie is the number one YouTuber. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this, you probably heard about fucking PewDiePie. PewDiePie is super popular with 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds and all those little kids. Uh, but PewDiePie also has this constant problem where he burns through subscribers at a high rate. People subscribe to him, watch him for a time, and then they cut out paying attention to him as much. And that is kind of what's happening with Nintendo too. The issue with Nintendo and PewDiePie is that they are marketing to kids predominantly, and also their old fans. But when the kids grow up, when they get into their tweens, they start to want to move away from that kind of stuff. And problem with that is your fan base ages out of your content. They want to move on from where you are, and this could be seen with Naughty Dog and Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter and Naughty Dog's franchises. They started up those Crash Bandicoot, and then there was Jak and Daxter, and then there was Resistance and Uncharted and The Last of Us. I was gonna say Until Dawn. Why I said that? I was gonna say that, I don't know, but that's what it was. My brain kind of buzzed out, And Naughty Dog basically moved their target point up as their fans progressed along in age. And Nintendo has this strange position, particularly in the United States. Nintendo is not like this in Japan. Nintendo has dating sims and weird, creepy, darker games and that never come out in the United States and rarely ever do come out in Europe. But Nintendo's kind of shackled down to the kiddie image. And the problem with being a kiddie company is that your fan base ages out. You will keep some. You'll keep people like me and a handful others that will enjoy your content, their content, but a lot of their fans will drift away. And the problem with that is that Nintendo has to then remarket to new kids coming up. And Nintendo kind of not doing cartoons as much or anime as much, or folk really actually trying to market their content creates these dead gaps where the kids actually bypass them. And important update. Uh, and then Nintendo ends up with the problem with dropping sales because the kids and their parents just simply, I actually work at a recycling center. I talk with people who come in all the time who happen to have kids and play video games. And ever so often, I will get a person who I'm just going to get my 6-year-old a PlayStation 4, and then like that's mostly a T and M game with system with a bunch of little E's mixed in there. But then that realization of talking to people and like you're getting your kids a Xbox, your 6-year-old an Xbox or a PlayStation system, and that is Nintendo's marketing to the kids. PlayStation, Xbox is marketing to more towards adults, and kids are being bypassed on Nintendo. They're actually going around Nintendo now. So Nintendo is selling on its nostalgia. The easier thing to grab is actually my Mega Man NT Warrior figures, but I'm not going to do. Oh, nah. I'm not going to even pull anything down. But Nintendo sells predominantly to kids and family and their old fans that stay along with them. And the problem is when Nintendo kind of doesn't Nintendo gives up the core strategies that helped build it as a company, like cartoons and anime. Anime cartoons is the same fucking thing. But Nintendo stops really working on that. We end up with situations where we have kids going around Nintendo. And it could actually get to a point where so many kids end up bypassing Nintendo. Nintendo will never be able to recover from that kind of damage. Because those kids are more likely to just say, when they grow up, is to give their kids a PlayStation 6 or a PlayStation 10 and an Xbox Ultra Neo or something like that. And Nintendo has effectively destroyed any hope of it actually continuing forward because they gave up strategies that actually helped move it forward by picking up kids and getting them on Nintendo. And then every so often, those kids will grow up and then they will get Nintendo systems for their kids. So the whole anime idea, going into anime more, is actually a really, really old idea Nintendo did to break into the video game market in the United States. And there's a whole deep, complex history how Nintendo broke into the video gaming industry market. And I have yet to truly see a video on YouTube yet, even by the gaming historian, The gaming historian does amazing videos, but even when he does a few videos that talk about how Nintendo broke into the video gaming industry in the United States, or any other channel for that matter, it only focuses on a small segment of that history. And at some point, when I actually build up my channel and actually have better, more proper equipment, I will do something along that line. I will literally go and put forth the effort to, once I have a good video editor and a good camera and all kinds of stuff, get into building a video or a video series that explains how did Nintendo get into the United States, what kind of negative and positive consequences that was in the video gaming industry, and where it would have been if Nintendo did not. But there. Movies, video games, Nintendo should have never gave up. Nintendo should always have more than one video game cartoon or anime series on air. Nintendo basically currently just has Pokemon. That is not good enough. Nintendo should have a Mario series or a Zelda series and a Metroid series, a Kirby series, and so forth on TV. And they don't necessarily have to follow, they do not have to follow the game's timeline, the video game's timeline or story arcs whatsoever. They don't have to do that. Nintendo could do like Marvel does and just say, this is the cartoon universe, this is the video game universe, this is the comic universe. And there could be a whole bunch of different ways. Mario could be in cartoons very similar to these, but actually taking into account the actual developed nuances of the franchise. And by the way, these cartoons, the original Legend of Zelda cartoons and the Mario cartoons, started with the first games released in the United States and generally around that time. And that was long before Nintendo has established who Mario is or who Link is and so forth. So even then, Nintendo did not have all the details worked out. And generally also, the franchises were also darker in tone than a lot of people remember, even just by Nintendo mythology sources. Uh, as far as cartoons are concerned, Nintendo should really, really get their ass on that. Nintendo really needs to get on that. As for Nintendo releasing details on the NX in the United States, I had another video called Nintendo NX is coming in 2016 with a question mark at the end as another video here on my channel. And then there was Nintendo making more money. Simply produce more amiibo. Make more video games that use amiibo. Make more of your games that use amiibo. Use them in newer, different ways. Sorry about the belch right there. And that would really, really, really help out right there. Really, really would. Also, card amiibo and token amiibo would also be awesome too. I have a video, Nintendo ideas for Nintendo amiibo or something along that line on this channel. I was talking about a token form of amiibo idea I had as well. What else is there? Theme parks are awesome. That would be a really good thing. I would like to see. As far as that is concerned, I don't know what to say exactly to expand upon that concept. Obviously, areas dedicated to Mario, Metroid, and Zelda, and on and on. Pokemon would be great too in that category. Movies are probably best off starting out, follow the Pokemon movie or strategy, do them in animated fashion, or in the case of a Star Fox, movie or TV series, you do it with puppets. Get the Jim Henson Company doing a Star Fox series of TV show, Star Fox series of TV. See, this goes back into the origin of Star Fox. Shigeru Miyamoto designed the aesthetics of Star Fox around his love of Thunderbirds, which is an old British puppet show, and the way the mouths talk and everything else. I'm quite sure all the Nintendo fans know about this whole mythology, but that would be a really cool thing for Nintendo to do, is basically just make the Star Fox cartoon with puppets and get get the Jim Henson Company to do that, and that would be awesome. And if Nintendo built up enough cartoon series and revived some old ones, they could potentially also spin it off into their own Cartoon Network. And I've talked to people around the world about Nintendo, and Nintendo apparently has a Nintendo anime network in Europe and in Japan, but not here in the United States. No. And I'm like, okay, there's the original Super Mario Brothers, there's cartoons, there's Captain and the Game Master, there's Legend of Zelda, there's also a Donkey Kong cartoon series, which is horrible, but would be funny. There's the F-Zero animated series, or anime. There is, I think there's also a Fire Emblem anime series, and then there's also Pokemon. And Nintendo could just fill up like 4 or 5 time slots with just Pokemon. And that leads into a question: if Nintendo had its own anime network, say like on, they just had their own anime network, whether you can download an app and subscribe to it for $5.99 a month, or some other source like that, or like YouTube, they had the anime network on YouTube, and you just simply subscribe to that. Would you spend like $5.99 a month to watch a ton of Nintendo cartoons? I'd be really tempted to if I did not own a bunch of them already. Oh yeah, Kirby Right Back at You would be on there too. And yet again, Nintendo was popular with the Mario uh, games and Zelda games, and they had cartoons when those franchises launched. And when Nintendo reintroduced Kirby with more emphasis with Kirby Right Back at You, that franchise got an upkick. And then there was Pokemon, which then they released in the United States along with the anime, just a little ahead of the anime was a little ahead of the cartoon series, and that shot up. Every time Nintendo makes a cartoon series and attaches it to their video game, or contracts out another company to do a cartoon or a TV show or movies for their franchise, that franchise gets a huge lift. And I have no fucking clue why. I'm sorry about the swear words, but I have no clue why Nintendo doesn't do this more. That is one of those magical mysteries that you have to endlessly ask yourself. There's these things that Nintendo has done in the past. Whenever they come back to them and use them, it works amazingly, but then they give up or abandon them all the time. And it's like, oh. there's just things, you know. I seriously wonder whether Nintendo of America is just incompetent or borderline useless. If I took over Nintendo of America, every Nintendo fan, after my initial speech outlining my personal goals, would fucking freak out and probably build a statue in my honor. because I really spend a lot of time thinking about and working out the exact history of Nintendo, how it succeeded, how it has grown. I would not beat up YouTubers as much as Nintendo does now. Seriously. Uh, as far as Let's Plays are concerned, uh, Let's Plays are good and bad. They do good to video games that are not heavy story oriented games, but more fun, uh, run around, do goofy stuff, enjoy the environment, stuff like that. Multiplayer games, all kinds of stuff like that. And when they do harm to a video game is when it is showing off that the game is crap, or showing off a game that is extremely story oriented. A good example is the Order 1886 for the PlayStation 4. That game is heavy story orientation. That game is heavy on the story, it's heavy on the graphics. There's not terribly deep on the gameplay and everything else. It is a graphic showcase with a lot of story and a lot of CG sequences. And that is the type of game that is harmed severely by Let's Plays. Let's Plays do not harm fun games, they do not harm party games. Nintendo makes games on the has always made games on the basic concept of what Satoru Iwata once said famously. Games are meant to be one thing, fun. Fun for everyone. And Nintendo is basically the company that makes games that play the best to a Let's Play audience and would be the most optimally boosted by Let's Plays. And yet Nintendo is very restrictive about Let's Plays. Sony, with its heavy cinematic orientation, and everyone bitches and whines, Total Biscuit bitches and whines about cinematic games. First and foremost, you're obsessing about cinematic as in the concept of movies, what as to opposed to what it means for the video game industry. And he is his last video, I have actually a whole video I had planned out just to complain about his 5 terms he wants and it's removed from discussions, but video games discussions, but I'm not going to do that unless everyone wants to see me tear apart Total Biscuit's arguments and make him fucking look like a moron. So if you really want to see that, leave a comment below. But I completely forgot where I was going now. Oh, on Sony and cinematics. In the case of Sony, they are heavy CG or they're a very cinematic oriented company when it comes to video games, and that is how they sell their games. And those are the types of games that are actually weakened or just destroyed by Let's Plays. And Sony has the most Let's Play friendly orientation overall compared to Nintendo and Microsoft. Microsoft is actually pretty friendly on Let's Plays, but Sony is that strange hybrid between Nintendo, where they are actually worse than Nintendo when it comes to Let's Plays on some occasions, but then on some franchises in some situations they are more friendly as Microsoft. But really Sony focuses more on the cinematic type games, and you could blame, if you really hate the term cinematic, the company that really pushed that concept into video games was Sony. That's it right there. It really was Sony that really pushed that concept of cinematic into video games. Cinematic games, or games that are heavily focused on story and CGI, are the most harmed by Let's Play. Nintendo is more fun focused, and those types of games are the most helped by let's play videos. And that is the ironic thing. That's sort of like the history of Apple. There's a really good video on the Game Ranks channel about why do video games suck on Macs, and that is a really good video overall. And it's almost like the story of Apple's obsession with their image, sort of leading them down a path to diminish their status or image. So they're obsessed with their image, so they go about doing something thinking it would make their image better, but in reality it set them up for a crappier position and a crappier image. That is that is just funny right there to think about it that way. Uh, but that happens all the time, and Nintendo does that too to itself. Nintendo in the United States, I'm an American, I'm a console gamer. That's basically what Nintendo does to itself all the time in the United States. It basically does things that contradict its position and its image, and then doesn't quite work it out. And Nintendo really needs to get their ass on that. But I clearly can talk more about the cartoons and the video games as opposed to the theme parks part of the idea in the movies. Uh, I think I pretty much covered a general chunk of my thought process on it. Uh, Nintendo. Oh yeah, there's also a mention on in the article that Nintendo's mobile games are coming this year, and then after Miitomo is out, more of their games will more have more tie-ins to their more major franchises like Legend of Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, and all that other stuff. But then that's just like a whole bunch of question marks. What are you gonna do with it? So there. Uh, any last thoughts? Because I just do these off the cuff. I don't do any editing. These are my thoughts as they come. I have thought about these things rather extensively over the years, and I have many little angles on it. As I said, Nintendo predominantly makes and sells games oriented towards kids. How do you market to kids? You make cartoons, you make toys, you make movies. Does Nintendo make? Does Nintendo sell toys, movies, and cartoons? Well, they kind of dabble here and there or into the cartoons and the movies, but only with like one or two franchises. And it was pretty much just Pokemon for the longest time. But whenever they do that, there's great success. In fact, some of Nintendo's greatest successes in the video game industry tie into cartoons and movies when they came out. Well, thank you for watching if you watched all the way to the end. Please leave a comment and vote and share this video. And have a wonderful day. And don't do drugs.